Doctor Who wasn't axed in the year 1989, what would have happened? A number of things would have happened which you can follow on my YouTube series, which I highly advise you to do. But in the year 2001, a spin-off would have been launched featuring companions Katie Tollinger, 1990 to 1992, Sarah Jane Smith, 1974 to 1976, Jo Grant, 1971 to 1973, and Elizabeth Shaw, 1970. Sit back and watch the adventures of Leftover. So, when Stephen Garrett left Doctor Who as producer, he went on to the BBC soap opera EastEnders as new producer. It wasn't long after that, however, that he approached the new producer of Doctor Who, Chris Sandeman, about the possibility of creating a Doctor Who spin-off, not unlike what they attempted in the early 80s with K9 and Company. After about a year of discussion, the show was greenlit and Garrett got together with Terence Dicks and Barry Letts to create Leftover. Leftover would have been a detective sci-fi show with a touch of comedy. It had been about previous Doctor Who companions coming together to investigate strange occurrences in the city of Newcastle. The show would have been aimed at about the same audience as Doctor Who, but it would have had a lot more realism to it. It would explore the lives of these companions like we'd not seen on TV, and it would especially explore the character of Liz Shaw. As for the show's title sequence, it would have featured the show's logo moving, with the names of the cast appearing in the letters of the logo, then zooming back to reveal the creator credits, and then zooming into the episode's title and writer. The theme was used as an experiment, and it was supposed to show a slightly more mysterious and majestical side to the programme. In 1900, a boy went missing. It was never reported. No one knew. No one cared. 100 years later, the boy reappears and creates havoc around the back streets of Newcastle. It's up to Katie Tollinger and her leftover team to find out what's going on and stop it before everyone becomes forgotten for all eternity. This story had the job of introducing the premise of the show for a second time, as the show had already been introduced in the previous season of Doctor Who. This really would have been a character piece for Katie because of her scenes with the boy who the leftover team name Callum. Also, a lot of the runtime is comprised as flashbacks of 1900 showing Callum and how he went missing, which is spread throughout the runtime as the leftover team work out what's happening. It's a relatively strong start to a TV series which sets it apart from Doctor Who itself. Pain is inside all of our souls. It reaches out, burns us. And that's without being hurt, because when you're hurt, it's 1,000 times worse. You are born, then you die. But sometimes you are born, and then you die, and then you are born, and then you die, and then you're born, and you die, and then you are born, and then you die, and then you're born, and so on and so on. The leftover team are trapped in a world of absolute pain and everlasting death. This episode is very psychological. It starts out with the whole team dying and then being reborn. This happens again and again as the team try and work out what's happening. After about the 8th time or so, the team start going very mad and they start feeling the pain of it all. It's a bold second episode which throws everything out there and doesn't really have an antagonist either. It just ends up being a piece of passing space junk which takes over the minds of the team by accident. It's a really great character piece for the whole team and does feature some slightly more adult scenes as usual. There have been 45 similar murders in Newcastle over the last week, all of them electrocution. When the leftover team come across one of the victims, they notice something strange, something very strange. The energy the victim is emitting is the same as an energy that Katie hasn't seen in a very long time. Thunder and lightning is getting exciting. This episode harkens back to the Doctor Who episode Ashes to Ashes, Dust to Dust, in which Katie comes back to life. The antagonist of the story, the Mitahai, return, and it shows a side to Katie that we haven't seen before. It also shows Sarah Jane's investigative skills in full force, as well as Liz Shaw's scientific skills, and Joe's very creative comedic undercover skills. The Earth has always revolved around the Sun, always, but one day it didn't. The Earth fell out of orbit of the Sun, and it stood still. Leftover must try and help. They're being shut down by an organisation much bigger than them, an organisation that is at the roots of the majority of the team. This episode is the first of a two-part story written by Russell T. Davies. It shows how units can be the bad guys and gives leftovers something big to deal with. The Earth standing still. It also deals with the many consequences, like half the world dying out in eternal darkness and the other half in eternal light. It also deals with the environmental issues this causes and the mass hysteria as a result. It deals with that on top of the fact that Leftover is on the run as Unit tries to take control of the situation and they don't want any interference from Leftover. It has been 3 months since the day that the Earth stood still, and Leftover are on the run, and the only place Unit can't find them, Unit HQ. The Leftover team are undercover as non-important Unit personnel, tea ladies, drivers, that sort of thing. Meanwhile, they must save the Earth without being detected. The human race must unite. This episode is the second of a 2-part story, and it really uses the 2-part format to its advantage. It has a significant gap between the last episode, which really works with showing the long-term effects of there being everlasting days in one half of the world and everlasting cold nights in the other. There's also a fun story as well, with Sarah Jane driving the unit personnel to a place where they're trying to find the leftover team, and they don't even realise who's driving the van. Similar scenes are used with other characters too, with, for example, Joe giving tea to Brigadier Winfred Bambera, who's trying to track down Leftover, while she doesn't even notice who's given her the tea. On top of that, it also gives a resolution to the whole plot, and they end up with the helper unit putting the Earth back into its rightful spinning state. At the end, unit give them a full pardon and they return to Newcastle. It finally ends with the TV news saying it's something to do with the turn of the millennium, and for 3 months every 1,000 years the Earth stands still. When investigating apparent hauntings at a disused warehouse, the Leftover team discover a time portal taking them to the early 20th century. They must discover the true nature of the hauntings and get back to 2001. Time is of the essence. This episode is the first story to involve time travel after the madness of the previous 2 episodes. This one settles for a much more grounded character-based and detective story, even though it involves time travel. This time it focuses on Liz, as it shows her first experience doing proper time travel, as she is the only one of the team not to have properly time traveled before. It is also that haunted house ghost story, which seems necessary in any television series. It's a really enjoyable episode which harkens back to the much loved Garwood era of the show. After the Leftover team arrive at the other side of the portal, they discover that they're not in Newcastle, but instead are on the planet Harmsphere 4. A deadly threat awaits them. The team must get home, or Earth will cease to exist. This episode focuses a lot more on Jo, as she uses her charm to persuade the president of Harmsphere 4 to send them home, and it really nearly works. A lot of this episode is devoted to Jo's relationship with the president and how they become very good friends. It also deals with an enemy faction of people who don't take kindly to Leftover's arrival and decide to use a super weapon to destroy Earth. It's up to Katie, Sarah Jane and Liz to stop them and save Earth. Meanwhile, Jo must find a way to get them back home, with or without the president's help. It really does show the relationship between all 4 of them and how they have become quite good friends by this point. After arriving home, Katie started looking into a small cluster of papers she found in 1902. The papers read Transfer Order, Dr. Jonathan Smith and Samantha Thompson, Organisation TARDIS Incorporated. Alone, Katie goes mad with finding out what the Doctor was doing there, and why was he also in 1902 at the same time as them? Was it anything to do with the portal? This episode would have ended the series in a very glorious way. The mystery would have been around a set of papers Katie spotted 2 episodes earlier in time, where it seems the Doctor also happened to be in Newcastle in 1902. It leads up to Katie finding out the Doctor created the portals, and the fat Leftover pulled in was just a grave mistake. This episode ends with the TARDIS landing on Katie's street corner, and Sammy running out telling Katie to hide, after she got quite a fright of her life, with the Doctor changing face. The series then ends there, and the story is picked up at the next series of Doctor Who. A small coming soon trailer is played for the next series of Doctor Who as well at the end. So that's it for season 1 of Leftover. I hope you really enjoyed watching this video and be sure to leave a comment. Season 38 of the What If Doctor Who Was an Axe series should be out next week. Until then, goodbye.